When you're dealing with a health issue, nothing else matters. Your opinions, your views, your money, your wealth, all you want is your health. So let's all rally together in the good human spirit and let's help as many people as we can. I appreciate all the thoughts and well wishes for the fire victims. Our teammates at PRMG are okay. We do have some people in the area that have battled through this, and some relatives have lost property. Of course, thank you for thinking of my mother in this time.
Get ready for a new episode of KP Talks Dollars and Cents. Learn financial literacy and get real-time updates on all things housing, finance, and real estate. So let's get started. Here's your host, Kevin Peranio.
Hey, it's KP coming to you live from Plano, Texas. We are in a north suburb of Dallas, and I am here. My mother had open heart surgery today, and she is recovering in the room, and it's about 8 o'clock Central Time. So we all face hardships every day, and my mom is tough, and they're a great organization. The Baylor Scott and White Heart Hospital, Baylor Scott and White in Plano. So heavy hearts still have a lot of the two major fires, the Palisades fire and the Eden fire, still not even half 50% contained. So working through that. I know there's tons of aircraft and support that have come in. There's been an outpouring of love, from all over the world, really. I mentioned on our on my last video last Thursday, the PRMG Cares, our 501c3, would be doing a drive of some sort. So the link is on my last post, and I'll also post it again here on this post. And so give $5, skip coffee tomorrow. Give $50, skip coffee for the week. Give $100, skip drinking for a night or a week, whatever your flavor. It all matters. We're going to help out the firefighters and Samaritan's Purse. PRMG has sweetened the pot, and we have put in some extra prizes for top donors, just so we're donating stuff to the donations. I want to make sure that some people get something out of it, right? Obviously there's a lot of local drives in Southern California. All the communities are just giving a huge outpouring of support. Clothes, not hand-me-downs, not your trash, stuff that you would want your kids to wear, so you don't make these families feel like second citizens and feel isolated. And so it's really been a nice outpouring of support. And the more God blesses us with our level of success, however it's measured in life, the more we raise our level of giving. So let's rally as an industry, and let's get some donations going. And again, this is all the administrative fees are all taken care of by PRMG Cares. Again, it's a 501c3 we've had for many years. We normally give back to our coworkers who face hardship, but we are using this vehicle to help the LA fire victims. So let's show up. Let's show out. It's a big deal. I don't know how you define rich. There's a sickness in some of the people's minds in this country that define things as if they're bad, but not. Rich people lost everything. It doesn't matter, if someone's in Pacific Palisades or if they've been there for 50 years and they aren't quote unquote rich. And I think what matters is when people have resources and they gain them, through whatever, hard work, sacrifice, whatever the case may be, that they use that and leverage that, whatever it is, to help their fellow man. Even if they are, have a predisposed hatred and bias towards people with money. Not everyone in these fires are rich, and certainly not everyone giving is rich. And if someone is quote unquote rich, they're rich in heart and soul. And I can tell you, sitting with my mother this morning for 45 minutes before we wheeled her off to the operating room and she was taken away, when you're dealing with a health issue, nothing else matters. Your opinions, your views, your money, your wealth, all you want is your health. So let's all rally together in the good human spirit, and let's help as many people as we can. I appreciate all the thoughts and well wishes for the fire victims. Our teammates at PRMG are okay. We do have some people in the area that have battled through this, and some relatives have lost property. And of course, thank you for thinking of my mother in this time. Okay, let's get back to the hard news real quick. I'll just spend a couple minutes. In ActMI, Rohit Gupta is their CEO, and he had a great speaker named Doug Eakins who puts out an email called The Daily Dish. It's fantastic. He was a speaker at one of their executive summits, and I don't know if I could have found someone to sum up in a better way where we are with inflation. Yes, the 10-year yield is like the highest it's been in a year at 478, and rates are high, but rates are not higher than they were in May. That's because the spread is coming down from the 10-year Treasury and 30-year fixed rate mortgage. That's a good thing, and that will work itself off. We have a PPI, Producer Price Index inflation report tomorrow, and CPI on Wednesday. I misspoke last week. I think I said Wednesday, Thursday. But the Consumer Price Index, especially the core reading, is very important. The Fed's more favored inflation measure is the Fed deflator, core PCE, personal consumption expenditure. But these are top tier data points this week, and they will move markets. They'll move the stock market. They'll move the bond market. Now, what's interesting is, if we were looking for a 2.5% target, that's okay. Oh, that's my sister. My sister, hey, see y'all. My sister and her daughter, my niece, they're letting my mom rest, so they're taking off. And I'm going to go eat some barbecue. A 2.5% inflation target is 2.4 is historically where we've been for 40 years. We're not getting to 2%. We've never been at 2%. Really, we've averaged 2.4% for 40 years. So, but if the Fed wants to take a pause and not cut rates anymore, we're not at the moment in an imminent threat of them raising rates, and that's a big difference. And so this stuff takes time to work itself off, whether through credit card debt, expenses that consumers are paying for everything. Everything's expensive. Everything is expensive. I've even been eating smaller portions myself just to save money, trying to do half my lunch, at dinner and half at lunch. Everyone's hit hard, but inflation is an invisible tax on everyone, and we're going to see how much that tax is going up. Inflation is still going up. It's just going up at a slower pace. They call that disinflation, although the last couple of readings have gone up a little bit. A monthly read of 0.25 or lower is a win on the CPI this week. Okay, the difference between 0.22 and 0.27 is like 0.6 annualized, and that's a big difference. And so if it says 0.3 because they rounded up from 0.25, that's different than if it was 0.29, and that matters because this is a monthly reading times 12. You get your annualized reading. So we'll take a look at that. There's still a lot of uncertainty about the biggest cause of inflation, which is government spending and the amount of Treasury issuance that's going on in the bond market. That's why a big part of why the 10-year Treasury yield has remained elevated, because all the people who buy U.S. Treasuries around the world, quite honestly, they're worried. They're worried that with the uncertainty of a new administration, what their policies, what's the new debt ceiling limit, what their bills that they pass. Let me try not to get hit by two cars at once. Would be a first for my videos. I think that's actually the third time. And of course tariffs. And it's funny, the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report has creeped up on their inflation expectations. But if you look deeper in there, and I credit Tom Lee from Funshot Advisors, it's very interesting. Democrats have a much higher, like double the estimate of inflation than Republicans. So there's some politics and of course those biases that I was referring to earlier, some extreme on both sides. Obviously, they're creeping into some of the data points. But this data coming out tomorrow and Wednesday, that's very powerful data. Will the new budget be large, very large, or too much to handle? We don't know yet. So the bond market is, throwing up right now. But if rates stay where they are now, where they were in May of last year through May, the companies, that I talked to had a decent spring purchase season. People need shelter. They need them in LA. They need them everywhere. So you take 7,000 structures off the market, most of which are residential, burning the size of Manhattan down. Those markets are going to cause some disruption in the inflation numbers in the coming months. I'm seeing prices being increased, some gougers out there. Think of all the vehicles lost. Used car prices are going to spike. And that will be some distortion in the data. So we're going to watch the data. We're going to be data dependent, and we're going to get through this week. And again, I thank you all so much for being level-headed. All of us are just trying to help. And whether we're trying to get the word out on what we did individually, using our means and our methods from, all of our years of sacrificing friends and family and investing, which, by the way, I try and give investing tips on here all the time to help everyone create and generate wealth. And our business is all about building families and communities and putting a roof over the head. So let's help them out. Have a wonderful evening. Cheers.
Hey, it's KP coming to you live from Corona, California. It's Thursday night, 11 p.m. on the West Coast, and I am going to pray for all the victims for the LA fires. And we are going to talk about fires and hurricanes and how they are like job losses and rising inflation. It's an analogy I just thought of like a couple seconds ago. I was reading an update on my phone. I want to see the latest. It may not be the absolute latest, but by the way, thank you for those that have donated to the PRMG Cares drive. We are getting a good response early on, so thank you. So please look out for the link. By the way, when I put a link in any of my comments, it always suppresses my reach and engagement. So I don't think this platform likes anyone being steered outside of the platform. So it squashes it. So you have to go to my old posts to look for the link or look for a million other emails. And let me just say, there's a lot of donations going on. I read that City National Bank, who we have a warehouse line with at PRMG and I personally bank with, they're incredible. I mean, incredible. Rick Bechtel's over there. If you guys know him, he's one of our industry colleagues and he's helping run their mortgage group. Great group. $3 million donation. JP Morgan Chase, who reported for earnings this week. They reported earnings, blowout. All the banks, Citi, Goldman, Morgan Stanley, I mean, they're all crushing it. They're crushing it on investment banking and portfolio management and all the above. But not just the stuff for rich people, but also the other services. And they gave $2 million, JP Morgan Chase, to a fund. And of course, there's a ton of other, all the movie, all the movie industries are based there, right? So if you watch movies, most of it, Disney, Warner Brothers, Discovery, Amazon, YouTube, Netflix, $10 million, Discovery pledged $15 million, FedEx Corp, $1 million, Paramount Global. It's just a lot. So it's good to see the rallying around. The estimate I just read, however, is that there'd be like $250 billion in damage. So 23,700 acres in the Palisades fire. And the Altadena fire was 14,000 acres. And so, this is way more than the size of Manhattan, which is insane. Over 12,300 structures. Update on my friends in the canyon out there on the Palisades fire. They are still evacuated out in Rancho Mirage, and red flag came down today, so they're able to go back and check on the property, but there's still don't have full containment on the fire. So praying for rain, praying for winds, electricity, internet, water, gas, all these things for the people that can go back. Just a few days ago, there's still 88,000 people that were evacuated. So, the Fed has a dual mandate, and they are looking for low unemployment and price stability. Now, our economy is 70% consumer spending driven, okay, our GDP. So the fire is the analogy to job loss. And so a job loss recession is like this. It is devastating. When your income goes to zero or you can't find a job, you have lost everything. You've lost your ability to do anything, right? Unless you have savings, or in this case, the analogy, insurance, or some way to get it back and get you back in the game while you rebuild your career, rebuild your home. Hurricanes are with the flooding waters and the storm surge. And I lived in Fort Lauderdale for 13 years. I personally took a direct hit from both Wilma and Katrina. The eye of Katrina went over the roof of my house in downtown Fort Lauderdale. It was surreal. But you don't always have. I mean, obviously, Homestead, Florida has faced, a devastating hurricane that was like these devastating fires. Hurricane's a little different. You get some flooding, you get some storm surge, you get some wind damage to the roof. Obviously, that's not always the case. There are some total losses for sure. But it's like inflation, this storm surge, this water just creeps up on you and it just suffocates you in the house. And inflation is an invisible tax. And we had some humongous news this week on inflation. Inflation's still going up. So the waters are still rising from, Hurricane US, I guess, if you will. Our government is the biggest driver of inflation. And now it was slower, so it's called disinflation. It's not deflation. When you lose your job and you go to zero, you've had deflation. Disinflation just means the rate of inflation going up is slowing. And the PPI print was flat on the core, and the CPI print, the Consumer Price Index, it was actually less. It was like 0.2 versus 0.3. It's actually 0.23. Okay, so when you're at 0.2 versus 0.3, annualize that over 12 years, that's a big deal. And remember, the point of higher Fed interest rates is to be restrictive on our economy. Okay, so that makes it harder for small businesses to get lending facilities like a warehouse line. It makes it more expensive to get a home, to get a car loan, to get anything. And your credit card rates are up. Your debt is suffocating. Those floodwaters are rising. And so that is what the Fed wanted to do to stop inflation. It's taken them longer. They didn't want it to take this long. And now that we're at this kind of slowing pace of it having disinflation, people have been suffocating and being flooded out of their own homes for years now. Okay, so it's been a couple years. And the problem with that is it is an outsized impact on the socio demographic parts of our country that maybe are less than the median income, the area median income. Maybe they're part of this 7.4% U6 unemployment rate where they can't find a job, or they're in part-time jobs, or they've left the workforce, or whatever the case may be, and they're struggling. The price of eggs are insane. I mean, literally in a year, the price of a dozen has almost gone up, double. I mean, I'm watching my wife cook eggs for my kids, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, you guys, y'all for you little you-know-whats, you better eat all that stuff. And of course they didn't, so I'm going around picking the leftover cold eggs an hour later after they're at school. This stuff's expensive. And it showed up on the CPI print. Motor vehicle insurance has been rising for 2 years. Do you think it's going to go up after all this devastation and loss in the wildfires? Absolutely. And so there's some other things that have gone up, like the PPI. Of course, it was flat, but like airline services was up and portfolio manager was up. Which, by the way, you don't have to be rich to invest in stocks. If you have zero money, paper trade. Go to Interactive Broker. It's something that I use. I've been using it for 6 years. And just fake trade with fake money and learn how to get in the game. And then start to put a little bit away. Skip a coffee, skip a meal, eat less, do something, save, and get it working in the stock market. Get invested so you can compound and build wealth over time, or save up for a house. It's a great way to build wealth. So anyway, I digress on that. But those fees have gone up. So now, one reason why the bond market reacted, so violently in a positive manner, you saw the 10-year Treasury come down almost 20 basis points in its 2-day session today and yesterday. Some of it was a relief rally, but some of it was short covering. Everyone is so sure that we're going back to 5% 10-year yields and 8% mortgage rates, and the commercial market's going to crash, and everything's going to be terrible, and inflation's never going to go anywhere, and duck, cover, run. I mean, you hear these people, and they're going to be right one day, I guess. But 2 years ago, when we were peaking at 4.99% on the 10-year Treasury, and our interest rates were 8%, I mean, we had 9% interest rate on these rates. We're down to like 3.2. So you can see how one data point that was positive snapped the bond market back 20 basis points in 2 days. I'm not spiking the football down. I'm not saying, hey, we're here. We've solved inflation. It certainly is never solved on the lower end of our economy and for people that are struggling. But it is trending in the right direction, which I've been saying and pounding the drum for 2 years now. Now, I read a pretty interesting article before the CPI print, and I just want to say there are estimates for January to have to come down even more. And we know that some of the comps being taken away from this index coming up for January, February, and March, were really high a year ago. Owner's equivalent rent, which is a survey of people. Hey, dude, what do you think you could rent your house for? Oh, I think I could get blah, blah, blah. Well, it's a year later, and they ain't saying that like they were a year ago. Well, the market's tough, and I think I could get so-and-so. And it's finally starting to show up in the owner's equivalent rent survey data. We all know that leases, when you look at leases, they're lower than they were a year ago, but we don't use real-time data. This owner's equivalent rate data lags. Now, it's been coming down. Or it's been going up more slowly. This OER number wasn't an outright deflationary number like in November, but it was the third lowest number in 40 months. And that shelter component, part of the larger shelter component, is getting better. You ship out food and energy, which we all know gas prices were crazy. We have a new administration that wants to drill, baby, drill. And so I'm sure at some point next year, we'll see gas prices come down. Every time I go to Texas, I was just in Texas. By the way, my mom is doing better. She's walking. Thank you for those with the heart surgery kind wishes. Hopefully she'll be out of the hospital tomorrow, Saturday. And then she spends 8 weeks in a facility that's around, physicians so they can help her get back on her feet. And she lives alone. And so I was in Texas and I see the gas prices and I'm like, it's like half of what it is here. It's crazy. So hopefully the rest of the country, including California, can do what they're doing in Texas, and then we'll start to see some of these numbers come down. If you have more money in your pocketbook because you're not paying higher prices for heating oil and gas and whatnot, it matters to the economy. And so it is volatile. The price of oil is between $65 and $80. It goes up and down, and that's why they strip it out. Food can go down. This bird flu can go away, and hopefully egg prices can come down as well. They are volatile. The Fed is looking long-term. They're looking out. They're looking so long-term that they won't even use current rents. Wish they'd strip that out, last year's rent and use this year's, but they don't. They have a long-term. And quite honestly, they can't see that far ahead. They can't see 60 days. That's why they don't know what they're going to do with Fed rate cuts. But I'm just going to leave with another point. Earnings matters. It's Q1 earnings season, Q4 earnings season, reporting here in Q1. And so it matters what companies are doing. Despite all this stuff, these large corporations, if they're doing well, the stock market will rip. The problem, the big problem, which remember, there's a lag effect, like I talked about, on that Fed funds rate. It is still restrictive, and there is liquidity being drawn out of the system, and that is going to break something. It's going to continue to break something. And if companies do well, and the companies are not breaking, and commercial real estate isn't breaking, and real estate isn't breaking, the poor people are breaking, and that's a problem. And so they're going to have to bring rates down at some point to try and help out everyone who's struggling so much. And so that's the real deal. Liquidity is breaking other economies around the world. We may break other economies if the dollar keeps getting stronger. And the 10-year Treasury version of Japan has a lower yield than that. Of China has a lower yield than that of Japan. And many parts of Europe are in a recession. And so, we're great here in America, but we're a global economy. And so we're going to see more data come out. We have a Fed meeting coming out, in just a few weeks. And then the next meeting after that in March, we'll have 2 more full sets of inflation data, except for, I think, the PCE at the end of March. So lots going on. Have a wonderful, long Martin Luther King weekend. I love MLK weekend. It is our first national holiday of the year. How cool is that? Taking our family to Vegas tomorrow. 4 kids, road trip, going up the pass. My 9-year-old Aria has a soccer tournament, and it's supposed to be freezing. All right. Have a wonderful weekend. Cheers.
You've been listening to KP Talks Dollars and Cents, a top-rated show for those who want to learn about the economy and mortgage environment. Tune in each week for more episodes, and please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Kevin Peranio does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through KP Talks Dollars and Cents. The information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. For more info, follow KP Talks Dollars and Cents on all of our social channels.